Thank you again, Davie County, for joining us for our weekly COVID-19 update. We hope you find these weekly sessions valuable. Sometimes they're quick updates. Sometimes we have guests joining us. We'll continue to do that based on what we feel is pertinent and based on any feedback that we get from the public. This week we have our Emergency Operations Center team all on the call, and we'll be providing you some quick updates with things that are happening. We typically don't repeat things every week from a prior session, so feel free to go back and listen to the prior recorded sessions that we do weekly, but we will be mentioning things again today that we think are pertinent to you, and by the end of our time today, we'll also show you how to get comments or questions to us as we compile every week themes that we think are important for everyone based on anything that we may receive. So on behalf of the Board of County Commissioners and Assistant Manager Robin West and myself, John Eller, County Manager here in Davie, we do appreciate everyone tuning in to us every week as we continue to get information to you via these weekly sessions. We wanted to start today, like we did the past session, by letting you know about the Smart Restart initiative that is occurring in partnership with our Health and Human Services Department through the county and the Chamber of Commerce. The Smart Restart is a toolkit that we've put out on the Chamber website. It helps our local businesses who may have questions about mitigation efforts for COVID-19, some best practices to think about, everything from how do you tell your staff about COVID-19 and how to be protective, but also how you also put measures in place to help your customers as well. We hope our businesses in town will look at this. I know Davie County government is looking to start scaling back in some of our public access points we're planning between now and the middle of July to be ready to do that. And so we're having the same conversations that you'll see in this playbook about making sure that our own staff are trained and ready, making sure the public that's trained and ready so we can keep everyone safe. So we hope our businesses and our governments will use this playbook as a toolkit to help guide those conversations. So please refer to that. We'll go ahead and dive into our presenters today to get you information, and we'll start with our partners at the school system. And our Superintendent Jeff Wallace with Davie County Schools will now speak to give you some updates. Mr. Wallace.
Thank you, Mr. Eller. Good afternoon, everyone. I would again first like to commend our Davie County High School early college graduates that graduated May 16th. Congratulations to those seniors. Just obviously difficult times, but they have stayed the course and done a great job. Very proud of them and their parents. Also, the Davie County High School's drive-in graduation is scheduled for Saturday, June the 13th at 8:30. Over the past few days, actually last Thursday and Friday, our administration and the team there at the high school spent 14 hours standing out and allowing kids to come through and have a picture taken and somewhat simulate the graduation. That will obviously not be traditional this year, but compliments to the staff there. Congratulations to those students on their soon-to-be graduation. We are in the process, we being the district and leadership teams are in the process of putting together summer learning plans for our rising first through fifth graders, and we are going above that and putting together a plan for our secondary students in grades 6 through 12 to help recover some lost instruction and learning due to this COVID-19. We have 2 plans that are due to the state, the remote learning plan for next year and the summer learning plan that I've referenced. Both of those are due, one this month and one next. Some exciting news also, Davie County Schools will move to a 1 device per child for grades 6 through 12 next year. This referenced as 1-to-1, and to enhance our opportunities for learning and being able to move beyond the classroom walls in the school. We have considered this for quite some time, but we have made great strides with remote learning, and we are going to move to what we will be starting out a 1-to-1 plan starting next year. But let me make sure that I reiterate that we never want to say that teachers can be replaced by devices. It cannot. Devices can only enhance access and opportunities, but it can never replace the relationship and the learning that takes place in our schools. Another item, the Board of Education approved a new 2020-21 school calendar last night at the board meeting, and that calendar is posted on our website now. We had to change that calendar due to the General Assembly's new legislation from House Bill 1043, directing all schools to start on August 17th, which I've mentioned before. And John has mentioned the reopening or restart plan. I can assure you that superintendents and staff, all school staff across this nation really, and the state particularly, are working on a reopening plan. We will continue to communicate with our local authorities and Suzanne Wright and group and John. We're meeting soon, and a local physician, and we have a plan in place. We expect to get further guidelines from the state health, DHHS and CDC next week. We were hoping for those this week, but we expect those next week. We were informed of that last night. And again, I wanted to say thank you to the folks on this call, to our community, and to our staff and our parents, and congratulations to our kids for finishing strong in a very difficult time. We're still working hard to make sure we're prepared to start next year, and more information will be coming out about that as soon as we can. Thank you, John. That concludes my comments.
Thank you, Mr. Wallace. You've been a great partner. We commend you and your staff. Who would ever thought we'd be talking about these kind of contingency plans? But I think all of you have risen to the occasion and have done a great job. So we appreciate you very much. We'll now transition into our Health and Human Services update from Health and Human Services Director Suzanne Wright. Suzanne?
Thank you, Mr. Eller. Davie County has 105 COVID-19 cases to date. 52 of those remain sick, and 4 of the sick are hospitalized at this time. This is an increase of 23 new cases since our recording last week. I know people have been very interested in the testing numbers. So based on a report that we received from NCDHHS, there have been 563 tests completed in Davie County since March of 2020. Some of the 563 are repeat tests on individuals. So I just want to provide you with those numbers. We do provide this information every Friday in our online update. So we include our COVID-19 case numbers, and every Friday we're going to start showing the number of tests that have been completed in the county as well. So you can access that on our website. We're seeing more transmission from weekend family gatherings. I know that's a trend that we've been seeing over the last 2 to 3 weeks. People get together on the weekends and they naturally relax a little bit. There are no face coverings, they're not social distancing. And then you'll see our numbers spike by 5 or 6 because that's how many people were in these households over the weekend. So just know that the family gatherings, you need to make sure you're being considerate of your family members too, because this virus impacts everybody differently. What may be mild for some is severe for others. So just be mindful of that when you're visiting with your family members. And I'm glad we mentioned the Smart Restart. Our local businesses have implemented a lot of the measures in these playbooks. They're doing incredible work, but they still can't stop people from coming to work sick. And I'm not blaming individuals. I just think people need to be more aware of the symptoms, whether they're severe or not. If you have a headache, you've had a headache for a couple of days, maybe a sore throat, and you discount those symptoms, we're finding out that those minor symptoms, if you're tested, people are testing positive. And once you've gone to work or gone to church or gone to a family function with those minor symptoms right there, it can turn in, 10 days later can turn into a lot worse illness for you and for other people. So before you go to work with any symptom, please reach out to your employer, reach out to our call center at 753-6550, and just ask questions. We just want to minimize the spread as much as possible, but it's going to take everybody paying attention to your body and to minimal symptoms. Something that you would discard usually or discount usually is something you need to consider now. So And as a reminder, just please go to the county website at daviecountync.gov. Click on the coronavirus update link near the bottom of the page, and there you'll find updated information about all the COVID-19 symptoms. So just make sure everybody's aware of those. They've been updated at least 3 times. I know I've shared information about the CDC updates to these symptoms a few times on this recording, but we keep a current list on our website. And I just need people to look at that and pay attention and make sure that they're doing their part to control the spread. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wright. We appreciate all that you and your staff do, and good reminders today. We know those symptoms continue to evolve and as you said, many times seem very minor to some, but turn into being very symptomatic and hurtful to others as well. So good reminders today. We thank you. We'll now transition over to our Sheriff, J.D. Hartman, for his update. Sheriff.
Thank you, John. The Sheriff's Office biggest event this week is the courts reopened. The courthouse also has reopened for business. If you come to the courthouse, it will be delays. It will be very slow. Getting court to function has gone well. Tomorrow will be the first test for criminal courts. So if you have cases or need to come to the courthouse tomorrow, expect delays and expect your movements to be slowed down and take longer than it normally would. That will progress as we continue to plan for reopening the rest of the courts, superior courts next week, and trials with a jury. But we're in that process. Bear with us. It's a learning curve for us as we figure out how to do all that and get the judges, the juries, the witnesses, everybody into the building and maintain the distances that are required by the Supreme Court now. And that's all I really have for today, John.
Thanks, Sheriff. We appreciate you working with our court system on that reopening. We know that that's been very tricky, and you've been a great partner to me and others through that process. So thank you for all you and your staff do for us. With that, we'll transition now into our emergency services update from Emergency Services Director, Mr. Brian Byrd. Mr. Byrd.
Thank you, Mr. Eller. Good to talk to you guys today. COVID-19 continues to dominate most of our daily planning. Normal operations are still being accomplished with very little impact to emergency services related to the state of emergency that we're in. We've been working with our medical director this week to see if we can loosen some of the restrictions on our first responders so that they can have a more active role in the medical responses in their communities. They've been being held back so far through the COVID response in order to try to keep a lot of those guys from getting sick. Another delivery of personal protective equipment arrived this week, and it was earmarked for the fire department. So the fire marshal's office has been getting that distributed. Again, to help get these first responders ready so that they can respond into their communities. We've also been working in the past week with the county manager's office, of course, to get some supplies together and try to assist our court system as they're opening this week and next. We've also been developing some guidelines, and we've worked to educate our emergency services employees in order to be ready if we're called on to assist our law enforcement partners in the community. North Carolina Emergency Management gives us a daily briefing so that we're updated on the status of communities across our state, and they advise us of best practices and of lessons learned. So we stand ready to assist our law enforcement partners in the county. We're also being given guidance related to the storm season that we're in. Unfortunately, the forecast this year is for an active hurricane season. While that would seem to impact the coast more than us, for us, with the community spread of COVID-19, if we're called on to stand up shelters, or if we have storms here where we have to open up shelters for our citizens, this could be problematic. So we're getting guidelines for that. But should it be necessary to open shelters, we'll be working with our Health and Human Services and public health folks to get that right. And that's what we've got going on for emergency services this week, Mr. Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Byrd. We appreciate all you and your staff do. I know you've been very critical and a great partner to me and others on this call with trying to get our hands on necessary PPE. I think a lot of people don't understand. It's almost like the lottery. You order, you hope the supplies are there, and you never know when you're going to get them. And I think a lot of people think that we have access to supplies that we simply don't. If you think about it, every government and even businesses across the country are trying to get their hands on PPE, and it's not that we weren't prepared any more or less than those other entities. It's just a matter of demand exceeding supplies. But you've been great to help us beat every bush that we can and try to identify multiple different vendors. So thanks for your hard work and helping us remain in supply where we can with those PPEs. So thank you, sir. We'll transition now into our 911 communications update from Mr. Rodney Pierce.
Yes, sir. Thank you. 911 is functioning with summer starting to take hold. Our call volume is still operating at normal. Just want to remind all citizens to utilize any information or numbers to call is 211 for state resources. As far as COVID information, that would be good source. Other than that, there's no big significant updates coming from the 911 center. We've still in contact with our state 911 board, who's maintaining contact with 911 centers throughout the state. And also we're working well with internally with all of our emergency agencies to ensure that we're providing the best coverage we can for our citizens. That's all we've got from 911. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Pierce. We appreciate all that you and your dispatchers do for us. I think sometimes we take for granted our 911 center and what they do for us when we call in. So we appreciate the hard work there. We'll now also transition to Mr. Johnny Lambert with our public utilities.
Thank you, Mr. Eller. Just a couple updates. Governor Cooper did extend Executive Order number 124. That's the order that suspended all water disconnections, utility disconnections. So that order is now extended until July 29th, 2020. So no late fees will be charged between March 1st and July 29th. No water will be disconnected between March 1st and July 29th. We're still asking everyone who hasn't made payments or hasn't set up payments for their water bills and sewer bills, utility bills, to call our office at 336-753-6090. We have staff here that can help you. Also, we know that, and as you spoke of, a lot of businesses are trying to open back up. The CDC has put out a lot of information about, moving water through your pipes and through your buildings before you open them back up. And all that information is available on our website and the CDC website. So that's the only thing we have for today. Thanks, Mr. Eller.
Thank you, Mr. Lambert. I know how hard you and your staff work to keep our lines what they need to be to get water to us, and also your treatment team as well, and what they do at our plants. So we appreciate the hard work done there for us. As we said when we started the call, every week we're looking for any comments or questions that y'all have to get those to us so we can then respond appropriately. Here's the link to do that. We encourage our citizenry to get that information to us via this link, and we'd be happy to try to address those things. We'll continue to bring speakers in as needed outside of the Emergency Operations Center team. We do have our core team here, and they're all doing a fabulous job. But when we feel like we need to bring in another resource to educate the community about, we'll do that. So that concludes this week's episode. We thank you for tuning in and your time, and we'll be back in touch with you next week with our next weekly update. Until then, our prayers go out to all those impacted by COVID-19 and to all those helping in the community. It's just, again, inspiring to see everybody pulling together during this time to help their neighbor. So with that, we'll conclude, and we'll see you again next week. Thank you.